Yeah, I was recently driving back to Appleton where I live, and I listened to the Steve Austin podcast, the interview that he did with Vince Russo. That was very interesting because he did it, the whole interview, on his PG rated show. And I guess Vince has become a born-again Christian now. So there was not really, it was pretty much a G show. And they talked about his career, and I didn't really know much about Vince Russo. Obviously, my kids and I were big fans during the Attitude Era, and Vince was there writing. Vince was a big part of that. I assume Vince is about my age. He may be a little younger. Sounded like he's about 50. I'm 53. So he sounded like he's about my age. He grew up in New York. I guess it's on Long Island. He went to school in Indiana. And then he did a wrestling show in Indiana. He went to a wrestling school where he actually took bumps. He was a manager for a brief time. He started writing. He contacted, I believe it was Mrs. McMahon. And they hired him to be a writer. And he, through something where he stood up and said this is how he feels, he almost got fired, but he was hired to write, and they wanted him to turn around the program back in the pits when Eric Bischoff was kicking Vince's butt. And according to him, he turned it around. And I guess he did, because when he was writing, he was saying that they got a 4.6 rating, so forth. And I liked the interview, and he got choked up when he was speaking to Owen's death and what happened with Owen. He was very clinical and very matter of fact and talking about the details, and then all of a sudden he started crying right in the middle of it, or breaking up. Because Owen was just a great guy, according to what everybody said. He'd like to make jokes, he'd like to mess around, and, it's funny, he broke Steve's neck. Could have paralyzed Steve Austin's neck and shortened his career. And I don't think Steve even holds anything against him. He's such a great guy. So, anyway, getting into Vince's. Now, Vince, he definitely is a salesperson, in what I would call a salesperson. He definitely presents the facts in his own point of view. He definitely talks about himself. He definitely is selling himself. Not that he doesn't talk about his bad traits. Not that he's not open about what he didn't like or what he would do differently if he could. He came across as a very nice guy. He came across as a smart guy. He's pushing a media page that he's doing. He and Steve got along well. And according to him, he was right there when Steve started, when they did Steve Austin 316. I just kicked your ass. He pushed it. According to him, Mr. McMahon didn't even think that the Austin 316 was a good idea, which I don't doubt. Now, the biggest point that he made is that he wouldn't even go back to wrestling right now with the 3-hour show. He made the point that they're mixing in the kid-style wrestling, where they have something that promotes kids and wants kids viewers, and the adult content, and they're mixing it in, and they're confusing the audience, and 3 hours is just too long. And I think those are all true. I think all that's true. I think he's nailed it. Because I haven't watched the product in years. I don't know. I don't see anything wrong with the talent there. I think they're fine. I think this Dolph Ziggler, I think he mentioned him. I think he's a very talented guy. I think Daniel Bryan's very talented. CM Punk, I think he left. So I don't see anything wrong with the talent there. Talent's talent. You got a big, strong guy big, strong guys and big, strong girls who are willing to put their bodies out and hurt themselves and jump around. And it's not their fault. Talent is always good. Talent is always great. Now, is there a Harley race in the WWE right now? Is there a young Ric Flair? Is there a Bret Hart? Is there a Honky Tonk Man? Is there a Jake the Snake Roberts? Is there somebody with that kind of talent? I don't know. I haven't watched it. because those guys had talent. Everybody I've mentioned had just loads and loads and loads of talent. They could get up and cut promos anywhere, could go anywhere, could travel every day, going to places, 500 up, 500 down, show up, and just sell tickets. I don't know whether they have that. They don't need it because they have writers and they have a system, and it's all screwed up. And I don't know if Vince said it, but he's the one who's responsible for screwing it up. He's the one who started getting writers and talked Vince into doing writing, and he's responsible. Because the talent needs to do both. The talent doesn't need to be reading and being an actor. The talent needs to learn to find their own voice, to find themselves. They need to be in territories, and it needs to come out this way. And this is not going to work. Wrestling's not going to work. They can get The Rock back and spend all the money on him they want, and it's not going to work. Because it's not organic. It's not the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be some top-down thing. It's supposed to be a bottom-up thing. It's just like when they brought in Hulk Hogan and they got a feud with The Rock, and I'll never forget it, when they had the semi-truck. They had a semi-truck that Hulk Hogan was in, and I believe it was Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, and they were in the truck, and they hit a trailer that supposedly The Rock was in, and he said, "I'm just going to ruin your candy ass." And obviously The Rock wasn't in the trailer, but I mean, that was just a great promo, and if Mr. Russo thought of that, props to him. I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking his talent. I think he's a talented man, and I think he represented himself well, but I'm getting there. And then they go in there and they spend all that time trying to get Hulk Hogan heat, and then he shows up, and then the audience doesn't buy it, and they cheer and cheer and cheer, and then the Vince and the Vinces and the McMahon family, whoever runs that organization, they said, we have to change Hulk into a good guy. They have to make him a face because the audience wants a face. So there's this interchange between the audience, between the talent, between the promoters. That's how it works. It's not some genius up there writing it all out. And I don't think this is ever going to work. I don't think they need 3 hours. I don't know what they need. Like I said, it has to be an organic process. And by definition, you can't sit down and intellectualize an organic process. Well, you got all that for free. I think Vince was very good. It was a very insightful interview. I liked the guy. He seemed like a neat guy. Steve was very respectful to him. Steve does a hell of a job. Very good interviewer. Very good. He's very good at what he does in this podcast thing. He shoots great promos for his commercials. Very good stuff. Check him out. Check out the Vince Russo interview. Peace.